Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Coming up in the next hour, ISRO launches solar mission Adya L1. The mission is set to put India on the next level of space research after landing on the moon. Russia deploys the Sarmat ICBM, capable of carrying up to 15 nuclear warheads. With the advice, think twice. NATO dubs it as Satan II. Thousands of rail union staff in the UK are on strike over a long-running pay dispute. Commuters across England left largely stranded. Storm systems, Chawla, Haikui and Idalia, all carrying weather woes for the people as they make landfall or close in on coasts in their path. In the Asia Cup, India and Pakistan clash in a high-voltage one-day international cricket match. India's space research organization has launched a maiden solar mission, Adya L1, from the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota, Andhra Pradesh. Adya L1 is carrying 7 different payloads which have equipment to study the sun. The observatory reached the intended low Earth orbit level following separation from the rocket PSLV C-57, 1 hour and 3 minutes after ignition. In 125 days, it's expected to reach the designated halo orbit level in Lagrange, point 1, which is about 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. The entire team of the Indian Space Research Organization scientists, including the chairman of ISRO, Dr. S. Somnath, expressed happiness at the maiden solar mission.
Congratulations. The Adya L1 spacecraft has been injected in an elliptical orbit of 235 by 19,500 kilometers, which is intended very precisely by the PSLV. Very unique mission mode here, with the upper stage of the PSLV taking 2 burn sequence for injecting the primary satellite for the first time. So I want to congratulate PSLV for such a very different mission approach today to do this mission of Adya L1 to put it in the right orbit.
Bated breath. It is indeed a sunshine moment for India. Now comes the moment of vindication, the moment of redeeming the pledge to the nation. And coming close on the heels of successful Chandrayaan-3 landing, the successful launch of Adya L1 is also a testimony to the whole of science and a whole of nation approach which we have sought to adopt in our work culture.
Nigar Shahji, who is the project director of Adya L1, spoke on the contributions that it's going to make to science.
Once this Aditya is commissioned, it will be an asset to the heliophysics of the country and even to the global scientific fraternity. And I take this opportunity to thank Chairman ISRO, Director URSC, former Director URSC, and all the center directors for their support and guidance for making this mission possible.
After the successful launch of India's solar mission, Aisha Khanum spoke to Dr. Jagdev Singh, who is the principal investigator of the Indian Institute of Astrophysics in Bengaluru and one of the pioneers of the Aditya mission payload VELC. And he said that the launch is a dream come true for the scientists who've worked on this mission to study the sun, and that the space economy will get a boost, not just the scientists, but the industry as a whole.
The successful launch of Adya L1 mission has delighted not only the scientific community but people across the globe. I have with me Dr. Jagdev Singh, who is the principal investigator who works with Indian Institute of Astrophysics, and he has associated with the important instrument, the payload that is in the Adya L1 mission. So congratulations, you said it was a dream come true. So how do scientists dream and they make it true? How does that happen?
To begin with, I have to convince the people that this project is important, and the background was the observation during the total solar eclipses and with a similar instrument like a chronograph in Japan.
Yeah.
So with that, what the limitation is that you get only few minutes of observations during the total solar eclipses. I was looking for continuous observations, and continuous observations are important from many angles. So to study the sun continuously, since it affects the Earth's atmosphere, I am feeling great about it that successfully it has been launched.
So now the challenge is about the data, storing the data, analyzing the data. What are the preparations we see on ground, with regard to this? Because it does require a huge, systems with capacity to store data.
We have already tested with the data, sample data, and it will be working round the clock to analyze the data. We will have a team of people who will be looking into that data. We have developed a automatic software. Once the data is downloaded at ISRO, it will be sent back, it will be sent to the institute, where we automatically detect that data has come. Its software will be automatically activated and will start analyzing the data.
With the lunar mission successful, now the Aditya mission successful, this will definitely give more wings to the vision of Atmanirbhar in space technology. With cameraman Uttam, Asha Khanam, DD India, Bangalore.
And continuing our coverage of the G20 summit and our in-depth look at some of the member nations, the leaders who are taking part, those who make up the G20 club, who they are and the road to their leadership. Recep Tayyip Erdogan is the president of the Republic of Turkey. He was born in Istanbul in 1954 and graduated from Marmara University. He entered politics at a young age and quickly moved up the ranks, becoming the provincial head of the Welfare Party in his early 30s. He became mayor of Istanbul and less than 10 years later established the Justice and Development Party, known as the AK Party. He first became Prime Minister in 2003 and then President in 2014 and has remained in power ever since. And returning to our story on the Aditya L1, we are joined by Lieutenant General retired Anil Bhatt, Director General of the Indian Space Association. Thank you very much, General Bhatt. So it's time to give our solar system a Surya Namaskar. What does the Aditya mission do for India as a space power?
Of course, with Chandrayaan-3, India had got established on the high table of space. But Aditya gives it a reconfirmation. Another new kind of scientific exploration, different from Chandrayaan, has been done after we have gone for this Aditya mission. And this reaffirms the capability of our scientists and the standing of India as a space power.
Indeed. So it's going to take about 4 months to reach the L1 point. Why are these, Lagrange points, feasible points from where we can study the sun?
As I know, the Lagrange points are places L1 to L5 where the gravitational pull of the sun and the earth is balanced with each other. These are points where for any spacecraft to stay, least energy or effort would be required. And then the halo orbit around L1 gives an option of being able to see the sun and the earth continuously, without any occultation, without any eclipse. As you know, the Telescopes also have been put there, and this is one of the points, L1, which is a very suitable area for studying the sun. And
Yes.
the Aditya mission itself is to study various and different aspects of the sun.
So how does studying the sun improve our knowledge of the solar system and of stars in general?
You could not define it by one tangible, direct relationship. But yes, in the solar system, the sun is the star around which our complete solar system is there. This, apart from giving immediate gains of knowing what are the effects on the weather of the sun and its impact on the earth, the way we can protect our satellites and communication systems on earth, it also gives you an understanding of the universe, which would help in further missions which would be carried out to other planets and beyond to the Brahmand.
So one of the objectives, General Butt, is to study near-Earth space weather. So put this into context for us. Are we basically looking at, solar flares, or what are we actually looking at when we talk about space weather?
Now, the sun being the center of our solar system, the flares, the weather effects from there affect the weather on Earth. And like I said, certain times energy or power which would come can negatively affect our satellites which are there in space. And as you know, we have about 50 satellites there, and also communication systems even on the ground. So if this solar system and its cosmic rays are studied properly, it would help in making out the proper useful equipment for preventing such a thing. More to know about how the sun behaves in different times.
General Butt, there are 7 payloads on Aditya L1, and they have both remote sensing as well as in situ payloads. How comprehensive are these compared to earlier missions that have gone to study the sun?
I won't know what other nations have done, because there are very few nations who have gone for studying of the sun itself. Yes, but these are very defined objectives. 4 of them are to study the rays and cosmic rays and other rays, and 3 are for studying plasma activity and the magnetic activity on Earth, on the sun. And all of them are specific to a certain aim which they want to achieve, to study about the sun. And in fact, as you are aware, 5 of our Indian academic institutions have been also involved in making these sensors.
Indeed. So if we look at the larger objective, how best, can we humans harness the sun's energy for a sustainable planet? And all these missions, will they take us closer to, because after all, look at the amount of energy that the sun can generate. And if we could just harness a little bit of that, we really would be able to, save the planet of a lot of the energy that we are trying to burn up and causing significant problems.
So in the best case, as the scenario is envisaged, all power on Earth should come from solar energy and not from fossil fuels or other means. Of course, it is an ideal situation. And some scientists say that in the future, maybe it is possible, where solar power beams would be supplied to the Earth for supplying power. Of course, there are technology gaps for that to happen, but that is the aspiration of the future. Of course, till today also, solar energy is the primary natural means and source of energy on Earth. More and more, it needs to be used for all kind of propulsion on Earth. And fossil fuel, ideally, should become the minimum.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Lieutenant General retired Anil Butt, Director General of the Indian Space Association. Thank you for putting this into context for us. Now, still to come on DD India News Arm, the Indian Prime Minister is going to attend the 20th ASEAN India and the 18th East Asia Summits in Indonesia. And Moscow deploys an ICBM capable of holding 15 nuclear warheads. And massive protests in Gilgit, Baltistan, in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
Do you think India is doing a good job at navigating the challenges in a polarized world?
India has done an extraordinary job under difficult circumstances.
Globalized rediversification of global value chains instead of being dependent on, say, one particular country.
We have to find ways to shield especially the less developed countries.
Considering Chandrayaan 3's success in a shoestring budget, can we expect more tie-ups in space technology?
All of us around the world are very happy that you guys have brought the moon closer to us. I am Federico Salas. I am the Mexican ambassador in India, and you can watch me in conversation with Munmu Paracharya in Didi India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. My name is Mark Lynn. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be attending the 20th ASEAN-India Summit and the 18th East Asia Summit in Indonesia. The two summits will be hosted in Jakarta by Indonesia, the current chair of ASEAN. The ASEAN-India Summit will be the first summit since the elevation of India-ASEAN relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership last year. It will review the progress of the India-ASEAN relationship and chart the future direction of cooperation. The East Asia Summit will provide an opportunity for leaders of ASEAN countries and their 8 dialogue partners, including India, to engage, to exchange views on issues of regional and global significance. The Prime Minister's 2-day visit to Indonesia starts from the 6th of September. The head of Russia's Roscosmos space agency said that the country has deployed an advanced intercontinental ballistic missile that President Vladimir Putin once said will make Russia's enemies think twice. The RS-28 Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile, an ICBM, has been touted by Russia as the world's deadliest missile. The 5th-generation heavy-duty intercontinental ballistic missile weighs over 200 tons and possesses the capacity or the capability to carry a variety of nuclear warheads. Some reports say 15 nuclear warheads. And Asha Chawla now is joining us from Moscow with more on the story. Dasha, what are we to understand by the word deployment? Are these missiles to be in active use if necessary? And if so, where?
Well, indeed, we have heard from Russia's Yuri Borisov, who is heading Russia's space agency Roscosmos, whose Krasmash industrial plant is dealing with the production of these missiles, that those have been taking the combat duty. Now, we understand that the Russian strategic missile forces are in possession of those types of weapons, and they are in the service. The complex is designed to replace Voyevoda missile, which is described by NATO as Saturn. And we understand that this is the type of the weapon that, according to the Russian officials, will make the Russian enemies think twice if they take dangerous rhetoric and threaten the Russian Federation. We have heard the Russian President Vladimir Putin saying that the country will be developing the so-called nuclear triad, because this is paramount for the Russian security as well as global stability and international stability. So certainly these are the issues that Moscow has in hand while planning to deploy these types of weapons. But we also understand that Moscow is not stopping there. Moscow is developing its nuclear triad. It is working on more advanced weapons even at the moment.
So tell us a little bit about this missile, the Sarmat. I mean, what's its capability?
Well, certainly, as we have heard the Russian officials describe these type of weapons, we understand that this is an underground, silo-based, three-stage intercontinental missile. It has the range of 18,000 kilometers and a launch mass of over 200 tons. We also understand that one missile could actually have the capacity of carrying from 10 large warheads to 16 smaller ones. And indeed, as the Russian president has put it forward, the Russian enemies will have to think twice before they actually try to threaten Russia. And make no mistake, the timing of that is, of course, very important. Russia is now trying to make sure that the Western countries do understand that Russia is not stopping at the development of the most advanced weapons, particularly now when there is the conflict in Ukraine and Russia accuses the West of actively being engaged into the support of Ukraine.
But Dasha, you know, I mean, how does Russia hope to make this particular nuclear threat more serious than any other nuclear threats? Because there are already these threats on the table, and you know, they are basically negated by mutual assured destruction.
Well, certainly Russia understands that it has a very powerful type of weapons at hand. But what Moscow is saying is that this is the strategic force that will be making the Russian enemies think twice. So Russia does not hope to use that, but Russia will be using that in case there is a real danger and the threat to the very existence of the country. So as we understand, Russia wants to assure that the Western countries do understand that this threat is present. Russia has these type of weapons, and Moscow has been saying that the development of these types of weapons will not be halted.
Dasha Chernyshova from Moscow, thanks very much. In Israel, more than 100 people were injured in violent clashes in Tel Aviv. The violence broke out around an event organized by the Eritrean embassy. This is to mark Revolution Day on September 1, which commemorates the start of the Eritrean War of Independence against Ethiopia in 1961. So more than 114 people had been treated for injuries, including about 30 police officers. Many towns in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they are witnessing historic protests against the government. Some Kargil Chalo march of Gilgit-Baltistan residents openly demanded that they merge with India. It is not the first time that protests of such a massive scale have taken place in Gilgit-Baltistan. It is now an open secret that the Pakistan government and Pakistan Army are subjecting the people of Gilgit-Baltistan to the worst forms of human rights violations for their desire to get separated from the rogue state and merge with India. Now, in the latest case, as the videos were viral on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, from the past few days, these show that the locals had gathered in large numbers in Skardu, and they expressed their anger against Pakistan government, demanding immediate release of their religious leaders and also protesting locals. They are reportedly threatening Pakistan government with civil war and have even said that they would merge with India in case the demands are not met. Now, Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, called on President Draupadi Murmu at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, or the President's house. The President welcomed the Prime Minister and expressed compliments for the success of India's Chandrayaan-3 mission. Let's take a look at other stories making news. With the aim of working towards simultaneous Lok Sabha and Assembly elections in the country, the Government of India has constituted an 8-member committee under the former President of India, Ram Nath Kovind, to examine the feasibility of the One Nation, One Election plan. Besides Kovind, India's Home Minister Amit Shah, the Congress MP Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary and others are part of this committee. Jet Airways founder and chairman Naresh Goel has been sent to Enforcement Directorate custody by the Special Prevention of Money Laundering Act Court. This is till September 11 in a money laundering case. Goel was arrested in a 538 crore rupee bank fraud linked money laundering case. The founder of the Kotak Mahindra Bank, Uday Kotak, has stepped down as the managing director and CEO with effect from September 1, 2023. The resignation comes 4 months ahead of the end of his current tenure. North Korea's belligerence in the Korean Peninsula, it continues with the launch of several cruise missiles towards the Yellow Sea. As per South Korean military, the cruise missiles were fired in the early hours of Saturday, and an investigation into the launch is underway by South Korean and US intelligence authorities. In a break with the past, Bolivia's government has acknowledged that the country is becoming a production hub for cocaine rather than a mere transport hub and the grower of raw cocoa leaves. Bolivia's government has claimed that it had destroyed a large number of laboratories, mostly in the tropical Chapare region, one of the main cocoa growing areas. Ivory Coast held local elections in what is projected to be a test of strength for opposition leaders ahead of next year's presidential election. Saturday's poll was the first election that the former president Laurent Gbagbo's African People's Party had participated in since his return from exile in June 2021. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Gabon reopens the country's border after a coup announcement. Niger's junta accuses France of further blatant interference. And commuters across England face a tough time because of the railway staff strike.
Exploring nature, with sustainable tourism, meet the change makers.
For us, there is no ecotourism without the community involvement, and not just involvement, but in an ownership control kind of a manner, where the community controls what happens in their area essentially.
We all want a perfect system, we want luxury, we want comfort, but without clean air and pure water, everything else is worthless.
Being mindful of our environment makes such a big difference in ensuring sustainable tourism.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. ISRO launches solar mission Adya L1. The mission is set to put India on the next level of space research after landing on the moon. Russia deploys the Sarmat ICBM. It's capable of carrying up to 15 nuclear warheads. With the advice, think twice. NATO dubs it as Satan II. Thousands of rail union staff in the UK are on strike over a long-running pay dispute. The commuters across England are left largely stranded. Now moving on to news from Central Africa, well, Gabon has reopened the country's borders, which were closed after the coup was announced. But Gabon's military junta say that the overthrow of President Ali Bongo will continue. They have refused to give a timeline for fresh elections. The military regime has said that it wants to avoid rushing elections that would repeat past mistakes. This comes as the Central African regional bloc, ICACAS, they have mentioned, as well as the United Nations and the African Union, pressure on the junta to restore the constitutional order in Gabon. So the junta has placed the president, Bongo, under house arrest and named General Brice Nguma as the country's new leader, ending the Bongo family has been in power for 56 years. And Isaac Lucando now joins us from Dar es Salaam. Isaac, Is there concern, you know, among various African leaders that their country could be the next one?
Well, as suggested by the African Union's actions, there could very well be some concern among African countries that their country could be the next one. The fact that they have been suspended, any country that has engaged in a military coup, they've been suspended. This is definitely indication that leaders across Africa are concerned that their country could be the next one, even if they're not speaking about it quite overtly.
But Isaac, you did mention that the African Union has suspended Gabon's membership. That happened soon after the coup. But is international pressure actually making much of a difference?
Well, at this point, that doesn't appear to be the case. We've seen in the case of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, that hasn't done much to alter the situation on the ground. If anything, it has emboldened the coup leaders in these countries to act as a unit to achieve their goals. And so we've seen it also with Gabon that international pressure doesn't seem to be achieving the desired results.
So you seem to say that there is a junta alliance building up with other such countries. But what could this mean for business interests and companies that are invested in these countries?
Well, generally, companies don't tend to do well in situations of instability, and so the situation that we've witnessed in West and Central Africa doesn't seem to be helping companies and private enterprise as a whole. And this is what has got regional blocs like ECOWAS, ECAS concerned to return back to civilian rule and perhaps restore confidence in private enterprise, and particularly those who are coming out of the continent investing in this particular region.
But tell us, the Bongo family has been in power for 56 years. Could the people have wanted change?
This appears to be the case. There were some that were trying to draw comparisons between Gabon and Niger's case or Burkina Faso or Mali's case, and it appears to be very different. This particular coup happened because of an election that brought to power a figure that has been dominant in Gabon's politics for many, many years, over 5 decades. And it appears that because of the disparities in wealth in that particular country, the population is now on the side of the coup leaders to say that they don't want the status quo to continue and they want something different. And so this further complicates the situation because there's no uniformity. You can't say that it's a homogeneous situation. And it's got a lot of the leaders on the African continent scratching their heads. There is perhaps a genuine concern on the part of the Gabonese people, but at the same time, leaders on the continent don't want military coups to keep happening.
Isaac Lugando from Dar es Salaam, thanks very much. Now, Niger's military government has accused France of further blatant interference after President Emmanuel Macron reiterated support for the West African nation's ousted leader, Mohamed Bazoum. The French President Emmanuel Macron says that he is in touch with Niger's ousted President Mohamed Bazoum. The French government has not recognized the military government and has affirmed that any decision on Niger will be based on talks with President Bazoum. His comments were published in the Elysée social media platform. Commuters across England are facing disruptions since Friday as thousands of rail union members are on strike as part of a long-running dispute over pay. With fewer than half of the trains operating, rail services in some parts of the country have come to a complete standstill. And the strike has thrown travel plans of passengers in chaos over the last weekend on the school holiday calendar. So Members of the ASLEF, which is a train drivers union, staged a 24-hour walkout on Friday in a year-long dispute over pay and conditions. ASLEF says that the train drivers have not had a pay hike since 2019. ASLEF represents other rail workers as well, and they have held a series of strikes since last summer. The National Rail has recommended that passengers plan ahead and check before they travel. Continuing with our series on the previous G20 summits, today we look back at the 2009 London meeting. So the main focus of the world leaders then was the continuing global economic crisis. Urvashi Kapoor explains.
In 2009, the world was confronted with the worst financial crisis since the Second World War. After United States, the second G20 summit was held in London in the backdrop of the meltdown. On agenda was discussion on financial markets and the world economy under the host leader, Gordon Brown. But there was growing unrest among people due to the ever-growing severity of the global economic crisis. And in the run-up to the London summit, thousands of people marched across London to demand jobs, economic justice, and concerns over climate change. Under the UK presidency of the G20, leaders pledged to do whatever was necessary to restore confidence, growth, and jobs. They decided to strengthen financial regulation to rebuild trust. They decided to fund and reform international financial institutions to overcome the crisis and prevent future ones. They vowed to promote global trade and investment and reject protectionism. Finally, building of an inclusive and sustainable recovery was agreed upon. Post the London summit, G20 gained recognition globally as the most relevant forum for discussing, planning and monitoring international economic cooperation. Urvashi Kapoor for DD India.
Sustainable development will be top of the agenda for host India at this year's G20 summit. Delhi's drive to provide medical treatment to all through the health and wellness scheme touted has been an example for the rest of the world. And Dibyendu Mandal reports on how India has gone about tackling this challenge.
Rahul is 10 and he's lucky. Until recently, he would have been forced to travel a long way to get treatment for his skin problem. Now the nearest clinic is just 1 kilometer from his home in Uttar Pradesh. The consultation is quick, the medicines to treat him are free, so too the laboratory facilities to examine his blood.
Before, the clinic was far away. We have no cars. So sometimes, the kid's condition deteriorated on the way. Now, the facilities here are so good, we don't have to worry anymore.
It's all a result of the Health and Wellness Center scheme. It was launched 5 years ago to bring basic healthcare to everyone in India. In rural areas, these centers provide medical services they have never had before. The aim? To give people a healthier and longer life. If a patient has a complex problem, the doctors can get help through telemedicine. Patients are connected via video with senior doctors at district hospitals.
We connect the patient to the doctor using the video call. Then the doctor sends his prescription to us and we give the medicines to the patient. We have 58 medicines, 14 tests and 12 health facilities here, and all this is free.
For the women of these rural areas, the centers make a huge difference. Before, they had to travel far away for maternity care and even for basic checkups, often leaving family behind.
जैसे कि गर्भवती जांचें हैं, यहाँ पे गर्भवती महिलाओं के लिए We have all the facilities for expectant mothers. We conduct their tests like urine, blood pressure, weight and so on. And all the basic medicines for children and expectant mothers like iron, folic acid and calcium, they're all free.
But these centers don't just treat basic problems. They can even detect complex conditions like cancer.
We can detect cases of breast and cervical cancer, and once we find them, we send patients for intensive consultation and treatment.
There are now tens of thousands of these centers providing healthcare for young and old for simple and complex cases.
जैसे यहाँ पर बुखार के लिए भी जो कोएक्स डॉक्टर हैं
People in the rural areas used to fall prey to fake doctors, which made matters worse. The government took note of this and decided to come up with these clinics.
सरकार ने पब्लिक को एक सुविधा जो हेल्थ वेलनेस सेंटर के रूप में दी है.
It is a scheme which has won international praise. The head of the World Health Organization, who visited an Indian clinic recently, said every country should copy the scheme to reach the unreachable and to provide basic health care to everyone. Not just this, there are 150,000 other such centers located across the country, aiming to bring equitable and quality healthcare to the doorstep of the people. The Sustainable Development Goal of providing quality and equitable healthcare to the last person in the country is being met through such health and wellness centers spread across the country. With camera person Rajesh Sharma, this is Dibyendu Mondal for DD India.
When the G20 leaders meet, it's expected that they'll discuss how richer nations can support developing countries grow their economies in a more sustainable way. But the UK is being accused of a lack of leadership on climate change, with a row over the expansion of Clean Air Zone in London, exposing fractures in British politics and also casting a doubt on their commitment to going green. Julia Chapman continues our coverage on the G20 priorities.
On the road to net zero, the UK has hit all its targets. But as its climate goals get more ambitious, they are becoming more elusive.
We've lost the urgency and the leadership from politicians to really push this forward. You need a kind of a stable political climate in order to concentrate on these really big issues like climate change. And we really haven't had that recently in the UK, and that hasn't helped. So what we need is to really sort of have more of a push from the top so that there's, it's a clear priority in policies.
The UK is phasing out coal and has taken steps to generate greener electricity. And from 2030, Britain will ban the sale of new petrol and diesel cars. But that's not enough to bring the country to carbon neutrality. The country's old housing stock is in desperate need of insulation. And in order to hit net zero, gas boilers must be replaced with electric heat pumps. But so far, there's been no policy action to address those needs. And some environmental efforts have proven to be divisive. In a recent by-election in this neighbourhood of London, green issues were the vote decider. The ruling Conservative Party narrowly held on to this seat after campaigning against the expansion of ULEZ, the city's ultra-low emission zone. The vehement opposition to anti-pollution measures has worried some climate campaigners, who warn that politicians are sending the wrong message. Independent climate analysts say the country isn't acting decisively enough. The government has issued new licenses for oil and gas extraction in the North Sea, and it's approved a new coal plant to supply the steel industry. Despite those steps, the Prime Minister insists he's as committed as ever to reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
As the Independent Committee for Climate Change has acknowledged, we will need fossil fuels for the next few decades as we transition to a greener future. And during that period, it makes absolutely no sense to not invest in the resources we have here at home, to import foreign fossil fuels, not create jobs here, and import them at twice the carbon emissions as our local resources.
As the green transition shifts from industry to households, cost has come to the forefront of many minds. The government is under pressure to balance the health of the planet with the wealth of voters. Julia Chapman in London, reporting for DD India.
Well, still to come here on DD India News Hour. It's raining heavily in areas where storm systems are surging across Asia and America. And India is playing Pakistan in the Asia Cup cricket, but it's raining there too.
Do you think India is doing a good job at navigating the challenges in a polarized world?
India has done an extraordinary job under difficult circumstances.
Globalized rediversification of global value chains instead of being dependent on, say, one particular country.
We have to find ways to shield especially the less developed countries.
Considering Chandrayaan 3's success in a shoestring budget, can we expect more tie-ups in space technology?
All of us around the world are very happy that you guys have brought the moon closer to us. I am Federico Salas. I am the Mexican ambassador in India, and you can watch me in conversation with Munmu Paracharya in DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Time now for the sports news. And in the much-awaited clash between arch-rivals India and Pakistan, India have set a target of 267 in their group stage encounter in the Asia Cup, which is being played at Palikkal International Stadium in Kandy. India had a top-order collapse against the Pakistani pace attack before Ishan Kishan and Hardik Pandya steadied the ship. Earlier, India won the toss and elected to bat first on a fresh track that aided seamers and spinners, with the possibility of rain being the dampener. And rain interrupted the game on a couple of occasions during the innings, but play resumed without the loss of overs. India lost Rohit Sharma soon after the game resumed, and Shaheen Shah Afridi then broke into the Indian skipper's defence. Soon after that, Virat Kohli, Shreyas Iyer and Shubman Gill departed with 66 runs on the board. And with wickets falling at regular intervals, Ishan Kishan and Hardik Pandya kept the scoreboard ticking and built a partnership of 138 runs to take India across the mark of 200. But Ishan Kishan then pulled a short delivery of Haris Rauf, and that brought an end to his innings after scoring 82 runs in just over a run a ball. And Prasar Bharati correspondent Dr. Ahmed Muin Farooqi is joining us from Colombo. Dr. Farooqi, so it looks like rain is playing the spoil sport, but the Duckworth-Lewis is going to come into effect, isn't it?
Yes, Mark. As of now, rain is still going on at Palikkal, and this is something of a bad news for many of the fans who have been waiting for the game to resume. As of the current situation, the Duckworth-Lewis system will be effective, and we have already started losing overs from 8:21 p.m. onwards. Now, as of now, the status is that if the game does not start, if the innings does not start before 10:27 p.m., we will not be able to have a game at all. So that is the cutoff time for the game to even resume, 10:27. And for that, at least the rain should come down it should stop before 10 p.m. at least for the inspection and other calculations to be done. So that's where we are standing currently as of now.
And what does it look like? Does it look like it's going to rain till 10:27?
It looks like the drizzle is still on, but it's hard to say if it's going to continue the same way till 10:20, 10:27 as such. But you never know. Palikkal, it's quite surprising. Sometimes it keeps on raining. Sometimes it suddenly stops. In fact, when the game was about to start at 9 p.m., the rain had almost stopped and the covers were being taken off. But immediately after that, the drizzle was back. So you never know if it's going to stop or if it's going to continue this way. Anyway, we'll be waiting for official announcement before 10:27 p.m. Mark.
And what about the outfield? I mean, with such a lot of rain, will it be affected, or is the entire field covered?
The groundsmen have done a fantastic job. They have covered the entire outfield as well as the pitch. So not much of impact should be there on the outfield. Nevertheless, it will be wet. Of course, the super soppers will be doing their job. Still, it will definitely be coming in the way of fielding once the game resumes.
Right, and if the game does resume and the Duckworth Lewis comes into play, how many overs is Pakistan likely to bat?
You see, if the game is commenced, if it commences by 10:27 p.m. and the least minimum overs of 20 overs are given to Pakistan to bat, the target for them would be 155 runs, which I think would be a fairly easy task for Pakistan because, in the era when teams have been playing T20, 155 for a 20-over innings is not a big deal. Especially if you have all the 10 wickets available with you. So it becomes really difficult for the Indian bowling attack to tackle at that point of time. Yes, the pitch does give some amount of swing for the seamers.
Yes.
So there is a possibility that Indian bowling can also
we'll leave it there. We leave it there. Thanks very much, Dr. Farooqi, for those inputs, and we're looking forward to the match if it does resume. But in Sri Lanka, the World Sanskrit Day was also celebrated in Colombo by the cultural arm of the Indian High Commission. Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center on Thursday was the place, and the event was organized in collaboration with 12 universities and institutes of Sri Lanka. 6 veteran Sanskrit scholars of the country were felicitated in the event, and about 300 participants attended. The High Commissioner of India there, Gopal Bagle, addressed the gathering in Sanskrit, and he said that Sanskrit is at the very foundation of the ties between India and Sri Lanka. Bagle also said that Sanskrit is the repository of shared heritage and civilization values of India and Sri Lanka. He laid stress on Sanskrit that it is not just a living language but is synonymous with life itself in its entirety.
Sanskrit Bhasha, Hindi, पाली इत्यादि भाषायां जननी संस्कृत भाषा अस्माकं द्वयोः राष्ट्रयोः भारतस्य श्रीलङ्कायाः च प्राचीनसम्बन्धस्य मूले समस्थिता अस्माकं सभ्यतायाः मूल्यानि अपि संस्कृतभाषायां रक्षिताः अद्य पर्यावरण वा व्यक्तिगत अस्माकं समस्यानां समाधानानि अपि संस्कृते सन्ति.
Typhoon Sal made landfall in the southern Chinese province, killing at least 1 person and bringing strong winds. Texas also faces wildfires. Let's look at this report, which looks at different weather patterns.
Hong Kong is fast emerging from the aftermath of Super Typhoon Sal's fury. The powerful typhoon struck the southern Chinese province, causing widespread disruptions. 1 death has been reported so far. As the sun rises over the city, the spirit of unity can be seen as locals join hands to overcome the challenges left behind by this formidable storm.
I live near the sea, so this time I felt the strong winds. The whole apartment felt like it was shaking. So I don't have any special feelings, just a bit like the Typhoon Mangkhut last time. At the beginning there was some worry, but now it's okay.
Preparations were in full swing throughout Taiwan as Typhoon Haikui nears. It is expected to make landfall late on Sunday afternoon. Taiwan's 2 main domestic airlines has cancelled all flights for Sunday. Wildfire in Greece is the biggest that European Union has ever recorded. Over 81,000 hectares had been burnt in the northeast region.
We have mobilized 12 aircraft from our rescue fleet, together with over 400 firefighters and 60 vehicles. Now, in addition to that, the EU's Copernicus satellite system has issued 20 maps of the affected areas as well.
The North America has also faced a triple whammy of extreme weather events ranging from record-breaking heat wave, tropical storms and floods. The Category 3 storm, Idalia, caused extensive flooding in southeast part of the United States. After hitting the southeast, Idalia is expected to strengthen and approach Bermuda. Southern Nevada is experiencing a dramatic surge in water level with heavy rainfall. The National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warning for central Clark County, including Las Vegas. While a fast-spreading wildfire in Texas has triggered evacuation amid high temperatures, aircraft are being utilized to drop water and aid in firefighting efforts. Mihir Makri reporting for DD India.
And Hong Kong is recovering after being hit by the most powerful typhoon for 5 years. The super typhoon Sal has now moved along the coast of southern China, even as the casinos of Macau shut their doors, and it appears to be losing strength. Sal is the fourth typhoon this summer to hit mainland China. Another typhoon is approaching the island of Taiwan, and yet another is gathering strength out at sea. Andrew Wood reports from Hong Kong.
Well, Typhoon Sal, Super Typhoon Sal, was the strongest such typhoon to hit Hong Kong for 5 years. But Hong Kong seems to have come through relatively unscathed. The typhoon has moved on. There has been flooding in some areas. The storm surge was about 2 or 3 meters in some parts above the usual high tide level. About 100 people needed to be taken to hospital, and hundreds more used temporary typhoon shelters set up by the government. Now, the typhoon has moved across the Pearl River Delta. There were problems, similar issues in Macau, and the gambling hub closed down pretty much as well, although gambling has since resumed. And Hong Kong International Airport flights have resumed after hundreds were cancelled. The effect further along the coast of the mainland of China, we're still getting reports saying how badly that's being affected. The typhoon does seem to have lost a lot of strength, and so it may not be as bad as people have been expecting a few days ago. Nevertheless, reports say hundreds of thousands of residents have been taken to safety. And remember, this is an area where there's a lot of factories, a lot of the factories that the world's supply chains rely on, and so that may cause economic damages or economic problems down the line. Also, ports have probably been affected too, and with airlines out, airports out as well, some of the just-in-time production may be disrupted. So on the whole, I think the south coast of China is doing okay as a result of reacting to this typhoon. It's the fourth one to hit the coast of China so far this year. This summer. There's another typhoon that's soon expected to hit the island of Taiwan and then carry on, and if it doesn't lose strength, hit the coast of China too. And there's yet another typhoon out at sea at the moment that's gathering strength. The meteorologists aren't quite sure exactly what track that's going to take. In Hong Kong, I'm Andrew Wood reporting for DD India.
Well, Andrew Wood was talking about rains, and well, rains have spoilt the match between India and Pakistan. The match has been called off. We were talking to Dr. Farooqi a little earlier, who was telling us that it would be called off if play was not possible before 10:27, and it looks like play is not going to be possible before 10:27, and the match has been called off. It was raining heavily at the last update, which was at about 9:52, and hence rain is played spoil sport. The rain has affected the match. It's been called off. India had scored 266. They were all out in 48.5 overs. If Pakistan were to bat, they would have had to waste at least 20 overs for the match to be feasible. And under the Duckworth-Lewis, they were going to be given 155 runs to chase in 20 overs. But the match has been called off because 20 overs too are not possible to be bowled. And both the teams have now shared 1 point each from this encounter. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.